Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I finally got around to seeing the movie Tar with Cate Blanchett from Focus Entertainment. And I've been planning on watching this movie for a long time, just kind of missed it. But with Oscar season coming up and with it nominated for so many Oscars, I decided it was finally time I check out this film. Now, I have no background in music really whatsoever, so the musical aspect of it I can't critique, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it still did fit in very nicely with the writing and complement the writing to such a degree that I think it is a positive addition to the film. Overall, Tar is not a film that is easily analyzed or critiqued, as it does not ebb and flow with the customary arcs and crescendos of mainstream storytelling. The beautifully chaotic and rousing orchestral soundtrack seems diametrically opposed to the slow build and gradual edification that defines the story. Instead of adhering to the patterns of the average narrative, Tar forges its own path, choosing to reflect the emotional strain of its lead with a tense yet steady momentum, culminating in an unexpected yet gratifying conclusion. Tar is a character study, in the simplest of terms, depicted in countless increasingly unorthodox ways. Its flaws are few, and its beauty is apparent. Every layer of this film is carefully cultivated and refined to the smallest detail, mirroring the precision that the lead displays in constructing her interpretations of symphonies. Every actor, set designer, composer, and camera operator understood the task required of them and executed it in perfect harmony, resulting in a very rare piece of media that endeavors to gratify by merely asking a question and never delivering upon the answer. Cate Blanchett breathed life into Lydia in one of her most compelling performances of her career, lending legitimacy to the film's already stellar cast and its script. Few actresses on the planet could have brought Lydia to life so well, floating between madness, apparent emotional disinterest, and drastic musical displays. Without Cate, Tar doesn't achieve half of the excellence that it displays. Tar features the rise and fall of Lydia Tar, a renowned conductor known the world round. Her proudest moment fast approaching, a live recording of one of her most beloved compositions, Lydia attempts to give justice and voice to the meaning and intent that she feels is buried beneath every note of the symphony. The music and art are all that matters to her. Nothing else exists beyond the base need she feels derived from this sound. Only by her excellence can she birth her interpretation into the world, leaving her cynical and disinterested in the broader world and her family. Relationships are all but a means to an end, extorted for any transactional value possible to propel her work into the world. This view of her world places undue strain upon those near her, driving them away. Can the constant enslavement to the art be detrimental to the art itself? This question hides just beneath Lydia's view in her descent into madness and potential ruin. With the decline and decay of the artistry of filmmaking, the daily corporate sludge exuded from Hollywood grows ever tiring and monotonous. Yet Tar proves that artists still exist in an industry in decline. This artistry is evident most clearly within the film's acting, cinematography, and its writing, all of which are unexpectedly phenomenal. Compelling characterization is one of the most challenging obstacles that a writer must overcome, especially without being overhanded or bland. Breathing life into characters requires a delicate balance of show and tell. So many minor details building the broader tapestry of a fully realized and three-dimensional character. Without exception, every prominent character of Tar is beautifully built upon subtle yet apparent choices made by both the writers and the actors. Nothing needs ever be explicit, and as such, it never is. New details can be discovered upon any potential revisitations. So much is left up to the audience to infer within the characters and the plot, much like Lydia posits is the essential and defining aspect of compelling music. The beauty is always in the question, and never in its answering. Tar is not a passive experience. The audience must be vigilant, absorbing small details to draw their own conclusions about every scene and moment. One of the few writing challenges which surpasses the difficulty of compelling characterization, while also informing characterization, is dialogue. Countless things must be taken into account for authentic and meaningful dialogue. Multiple meanings and intentions must exist while fitting within the speaker's history, origin, and lifestyle. Tar perfectly captures the perceived pretentiousness of those consumed by an art form in which an everyday individual has no interest. The choice of vocabulary and sentence emphasis effortlessly morphs from character to character, reflecting who they are in several fascinating ways. Every line of dialogue offers more than is at first visible upon the surface. Lines such as, A soul selects one's own society. The narcissism of small differences leads to the most boring of conformity. And the architect of your soul is social media. Give the audience beautiful glimpses into the mind of Lydia, with the deeper meaning and various interpretations apparent upon closer inspection. Many choices made by the creators behind Tar cannot be easily categorized, all lending to a very unorthodox film. The film doggedly refuses to take sides in any conflict, even in favor of the protagonist. It often refrains from confirming seemingly essential pieces of information, such as the truth behind sexual misconduct allegations made against Lydia, because the truth would change little about the music or the way she views the world. Perhaps the most defining feature of Tar is also potentially its most controversial. The pacing of the film does not flow with inflection, rising and falling to incite various emotions as the audience is accustomed. Instead, the film appears to be entangled in a constant and perpetual vibrato, imperceptibly building before fading away unexpectedly without the anticipated fulfillment. Some audience members who cannot dedicate themselves wholly to this film for one reason or another, or are unfamiliar with such a steady and unvaried pacing, may find Tar aggravating, boring, and borderline annoying. Others more accustomed to slow burn character studies of this caliber will more likely lend toward narrative edification due to this unorthodox pacing. Editing and cinematography must work in harmony, complementing each other, or any intent and talent derived from either will evaporate. Lending perfectly to the film's pacing, the editing and cinematography beautifully complements the film's themes, its intent, and the facilitation of emotional responses. Tar is comprised primarily of long single takes, which further display the exceptional acting of the film, requiring the actors to nail an entire scene rather than relying on quick cuts to cover up any mistakes. Every shot is chosen with specific objectives in mind, with far more occurring in each take than first meets the eye. One shot in particular stands out above the rest. Throughout the film, Lydia is haunted by everyday noises, which she reincorporates into the composition of her magnum opus that she hopes will define her career. One sound in particular, derived from the rhythmic beating of a piece of everyday technology, births the initial notes of her piece. These two notes reappear throughout the film to such a degree that the audience can immediately recognize them. For the shot in question, a new cellist that has taken Lydia's fancy begins to play her composition without her knowledge, beginning with those first two notes. Far in the background, beautifully framed by the light of a window and out of focus to trick the audience into centering upon the cellist rather than her, Lydia reacts to these familiar notes, suddenly stiffening and turning. Even though her face is unclear due to the distance and lack of focus, Lydia's emotions are apparent, framed beautifully by a talented cinematographer. If it were not for this editing and cinematography, the seemingly stagnant pacing might grate upon even the most interested of viewers. The primary conflict of Tar is an unexpected one that builds slowly throughout the film, going through the majority of it unnoticed. Several small interactions, seemingly throwaway lines, and careful emphasis constructs the conflict before it comes crashing down like a ton of bricks. Due to Lydia's desire for purely transactional relationships with all she encounters, many perceive her as someone guilty of impropriety, primarily in a sexual fashion. A former colleague with an undefined relationship appears to stalk Lydia upon social media, her attempts at attention growing more erratic and dangerous. This woman feels as if she's been used by Lydia and left broken and discarded when their transaction was completed. This broken woman begins to tear Lydia's life down piece by piece, fueled by a social media smear campaign against her, brought about by her refusal to participate in cancel culture against the composers of the past. For the majority of Tar, it's unclear that this broken former colleague would be the cause and unwitting instigator of Lydia's arc. The film does a wonderful job of slowly building to this revelation with so many subtle choices. As previously mentioned, a cancel culture smear campaign is begun against Lydia for her refusal to participate in the smearing of Johann Sebastian Bach for his white male birth. When a diverse student expresses his distaste for Bach on the basis of his race, gender, orientation, and the number of his children, Lydia bites back with several profound lines, ending with the statement that this student should be judged by the same rules that he judges the past by. Does the student wish to be judged upon his race and gender while conducting a piece composed by a woman? Many audience members have gone so far as to say this film is anti-woke as a result of her position on such matters. One character even equates life in 1930s Germany and living under the Soviet rule to current-day cancel culture. Whether or not that is the truth behind the creator's intentions, Tar definitely appears to fit that description due to the current landscape of Hollywood. However, Tar is not trying to make a statement on the subject. Lydia is wholly and completely focused upon the music, irregardless of who was responsible for that music. This hyper-focus forces her to refute claims that she is a frontrunner in the industry due to her gender and sexual orientation, because she genuinely feels like it does not matter and has nothing to do with the music. By necessity of the modern world that she exists in, she was always on a collision course with the current sensibilities. The wokeness or anti-wokeness of the film is perfectly integrated in a logical fashion that does not endeavor to take a stand upon this issue, much like it refuses to take a stand on any issue whatsoever. It merely addresses the facts and displays how this specific character would react under modern circumstances. Tar is anti-woke in the fact that it chooses to depict a flawed lesbian reacting in a manner consistent with the character that the film had constructed. It does not intend to send any anti-woke message. It only intends to tell a good story with an interesting protagonist, which seems anti-woke in the modern landscape. The flaws of Tar are few and far between, many falling into a nitpicky category. For example, the film's use of text messages and the way that it shows these messages on screen is incredibly distracting, unrealistic, and inconsistent. It appears that someone is just holding a phone in front of the camera while a conversation is texted back and forth without the influence from the phone itself. This use of text messages comes across as distracting and uncomfortable to watch. From a writing perspective, the primary flaws come by way of clunky character exposition. The beginning of the film opens with a man listing all of Lydia's achievements and her life story before beginning to interview her. It comes across as cheap and unnecessary, offering very little needed information that couldn't have been inferred by the film itself. There are several other examples of this where the character exposition is dumped upon the audience with little to no finesse. However, these moments are few and far between, keeping this criticism from being an overall detriment to the film. English subtitles would have also been helpful during the film's many German sequences. Luckily, most of these German lines were either selectively chosen for their lack of importance or supported by good enough performances that the translations themselves were unnecessary. The last peak of criticism is a rather large one, derived from the primary conflict of the film. Lydia is accused of being a sexual predator who trades favors with young women in exchange for personal gratification. The film refrains from confirming or denying whether or not Lydia is indeed a sexual predator, which offers interesting and unexpected avenues of narrative exploration. Tar's decision to depict a lesbian accused of sexual misconduct is a risky one and offers interesting exploration. This is all done phenomenally well and explored in a fascinating way. However, the modern world turning upon her with full-on riots and cancel culture campaigns seems a tad unrealistic. Without evidence, it's unlikely that a cancel culture mob would form upon social media to attack a lesbian. If the film had properly justified the mob wanting to cancel her beyond the single choppily edited video that mischaracterized her refusal to cancel Bach, the believability would have been greatly enhanced. Tar is an unequivocal masterpiece so foreign in the current media landscape because of both its subject matter and its immensely talented execution. Few films of the year were more emotionally gratifying nor intriguing than this one. For once, the Academy Awards are perfectly justified in nominating this film for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and Best Film Editing. Tar is an easy contender for every single one of these categories, and is due all the adulation it has received to date. This film definitely deserves a 9 out of 10. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.
Hey, yo, are you feeling what I'm doing up in here? Oh, I know you are. Do you miss all the good, compelling stories that we used to get back in Hollywood that they ain't putting down no more? I know you missing it. So check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues, baby. Book 1, Down in Flames. Book 2, Apocalypse Then. These are currently on sale. What are you waiting for? Get your hands on them. And we got Book 3, Kill the Dark, is coming down the pipeline. Just wait for all the good stuff that's dropping. You ain't gonna be disappointed, fam.